Hello, I'm Joe Ruggiero, and welcome to my podcast, Inspired, and the people that inspire me. You're in for a real treat today because I'm speaking with Eleanor Schrader. And this gal has quite a background, but I'm not going to scoop it. I'm just going to give you a couple of bullet points. Eleanor is an award-winning educator, lecturer, and author on the history of architecture, interiors, and decorative arts. Her company, LA and Beyond Architecture and Art Tours, leads tours locally and throughout the world. She's also a distinguished instructor of design history at UCLA Extension. But I want to hear it from Eleanor herself. How did you get into this business?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I want to tell you, Joe, how honored I am to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And, well, how much time do we have? It's a very convoluted story. I started out life as an accountant, a forensic accountant. And so I'm the one who finds where somebody hid the money or where partners have hidden something from each other. And it wasn't a very satisfying career, but really interesting. And it taught me how to pick apart things and find how somebody did something. So I can pick apart a piece of furniture like nobody's business. And so my husband at the time and I were remodeling our home that was in the flats of Beverly Hills, a beautiful little English Tudor revival. And I was driving the architect and the designer crazy. And they finally said, Eleanor, go and take some classes. You're driving us crazy with all of the questions. So I did just for the fun of it. I started at UCLA Extension and with the wonderful program that was run by Jody Greenwald, the ArcID program. And the designer's husband was the chair of the art department at Santa Monica College, where I had been teaching accounting. And so he said, well, Eleanor, why don't you come take a class come teach a class for us? I was blown away because I was just doing these classes for fun. So in California, we have a program in the community college system where you can take a master's degree in any field, which I had in actually in labor relations, which I didn't do anything with, but in business, and then do advanced work in another field and then go and teach in another department. So I did that. I did many of my classes at Cal State Northridge, at UCLA, and then went to Sotheby's in London to finish up my graduate work. And came back, and I had another job waiting for me at Santa Monica College in the art history department. And it just blossomed from there. I had stayed in touch with the leader of the program at UCLA, Jody Greenwald, and she had retired, and they were looking for a new instructor in the history of design and the fundamentals of interior architecture. And so I stepped into that position. No one could ever fill Jody's shoes, but there I was, and it has been an amazing trip for this past 25, 30 years.
Well, a couple of things I want to ask you. First of all, the famous columnist, Luella Parsons, lived in the flats in a Tudor home.
Oh my.
So, but that's no relation.
No relation,
to you.
No.
And then also, one of the things that we keep getting asked is, what will I learn from your podcast? And it always goes back to the journey. All of my guests have interesting journeys. So I would like to hear a little more about your journey.
Absolutely. I grew up in a construction family, and I really would have loved to have studied something artistic. You know, I kind of wanted to go to fashion design school, and my mom encouraged me to go into business because she knew that way I could earn myself a living. And I think she knew because she had two wild children.
Adventuresome.
And so these wild childs needed to go and get a traditional career. So my brother was an electrician like my father, which is a side story, who was the electrician to the stars.
Wow.
And I'll tell you about that. And so probably a little bit begrudgingly, I did a degree in business and then went on to do a master's in labor relations.
Always good to have.
Always good to have. You know, that has served me very well. Mm-hmm. And then this whole opportunity came up for me, which I was not expecting. My parents were just the salt of the earth. So they had grown up in the Depression, so they were frugal but not cheap. And my father was an electrician who worked for ADT, and he was a general contractor for them. And then he had worked for many individuals, from Johnny Mathis to Edgar G. Robinson.
Wow.
One of the last people that Mary Pickford had seen, because she was at that time quite elderly and didn't want anybody to really see her, but she wanted to talk to my father about the alarms. And then also my uncle was a general contractor. So these two gentlemen were best friends. They were not related, but they were related to my mother and my aunt. And the stories that came out later, Joe, that they had worked for the likes of Schindler and Neutra as general contractors. Both of them had worked for Frank Lloyd Wright. And I never knew this until right before my father had passed away, because he was very closed-mouthed, and that's probably why he was able to enter a lot of movie stars' homes. But boy, did my uncle spill the dirt.
Well, this is where your historian
Exactly.
talents.
Exactly. And we had camped our entire lives as kids, and you would not catch me stepping foot inside any campground anymore, because I'm very grateful for that, because I can probably get us out of some bad situation if we were in the forest, Joe, and needed to eat roots and berries.
Survival tactics.
Survival tactics. So that just did not interest me. But once I got bitten by the bug of architectural history, I didn't know what was around us here in Los Angeles. Surprisingly, my father, who worked in architecture, there was never any of that handed down to myself nor my brother. I found this through going through the program at UCLA Extension. And it just opened up this entirely new world. And so I met so many wonderful people like you and Brett Parsons and everybody in this whole field.
Well, you know, you're on hallowed ground.
Yes.
Because this used to be the Warner Estate.
That's right.
We're at the Calabasas Country Club.
That's right.
For our listeners. And they are so generous in learning more about what was here.
Yes.
And this is where Mr. Warner had his residence.
Right.
His country residence.
Right.
And then turned it into a basic studio, basically.
That's right. You know, many of the Western movies and
That's right.
many other things filmed here.
Well, they even built the old town of Juarez that Paul Muni
Really?
started.
Really? Oh,
And,
interesting.
it was very interesting the way they built these towns.
Yes.
Down to the finest of details, although they were one dimension.
Yes.
And then destroyed them.
I know. And then the old Spawn Ranch near where I live, that's interesting. So there's a lot of history. Sometimes people say, well, what's there in Los Angeles? Well, you need to live here and you need to find your way around and realize what a gem of a city this is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But let's not go into that right now. But so you never wanted to be an actress? I get a sense of...
You know, I didn't think about that, and I've been told so many times that I missed my calling. As a teacher, since I was about 25, 26 years old, when most of my students were the same age, oh my gosh, we would have Robin Williams nights. We just would have so much fun in classes. But as I got a little bit older and my students were getting younger, then some of the jokes that we might have had at the time just flew right over their heads. And so I evidently missed my calling as a comedian a long time ago.
Well, as Oprah says, there are no mistakes.
Okay, good.
So it served you well.
Thank you so much. So I get to do this in my classes and play comedian and actress. And
Well, you know,
classes.
I've always felt, and in deference to our producer, that if you are a lecturer or a teacher, you're an actor.
Absolutely.
And
That's
I
absolutely
find
true.
that to be so true.
I have what I call Eleanor's sick and twisted history stories in class. So there's nothing about memorizing dates or anything like that. It's more about understanding periods of time, eras in design history. And there's all those little quirky stories, whether it be from Henry VIII or Napoleon or anything like that, that helps my students remember why something looks the way it does.
Which is great.
Yes.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the case study houses.
All right.
And why they were initiated and what remains.
Yes. The Case Study House program was created by John and Tenza after World War II, as it was recognized that there would be a need for housing as GIs were coming back from the war, and especially housing that would be child-friendly, would be affordable, and would fit this post-World War II audience. And so he put through the proposal in Arts and Architecture magazine. 36 proposals were made by architects that Intenza had approached, of which 25 of those buildings were actually built. And the two that you can still visit are Case Study House number 8 and Case Study House number 22. Case Study House number 1 by J.R. Davidson was the home that my uncle had worked as the general contractor.
Wow.
So there's my connection to the Case Study House program. Wow. And someday I'll knock on the door and explain, that my uncle was the contractor here. It's in Toluca Lake, and I'll do that someday. And so these houses actually that were made of materials that had been developed in World War II, Case Study House number 8 of off-the-shelf parts by the Eames duo of Charles and Ray.
Would that involve plywood? Or?
Yes, absolutely. So new kinds of tempered glass, new kinds of electroplate, plywood. And so pretty much the home was built out of those parts with one additional beam that they had purchased. And then they originally had sited it in a meadow in Pacific Palisades that took up a good portion of the meadow, and then they decided to change it and move it to the side of the hill so that they would have this beautiful meadow in front of them. And it's there in perpetuity thanks to the Eames Foundation and a wonderful, fabulous man, Eames Demetrios.
What was the floor plan? Was it an open floor plan?
Yes.
Or how many square feet?
Oh, I'm so bad at that. It's a very simple house, just a rectangular house, and then also an office so that Charles and Ray could have their separate office from their home.
So they resided there?
They resided there, that's right. So it's 2 stories. There's bedrooms upstairs, and then downstairs the living room filled with all sorts of wonderful objects that they had collected from their travels. And it's very transparent, so when you go to visit, you can see just about everything there is to see from the outside. And then I had interviewed Charles's grandson, Eames Demetrios, in the kitchen, so I felt very special for being able to go into the kitchen.
For our listeners, because we have all different kinds of people that listen, Eames, the husband and wife team, probably were one of our famous designers.
Oh, yes.
Multi-talented Renaissance people.
They were. They had met at Cranbrook Academy in Detroit
Right.
and fell in love and have been called by many as the designers of the century. And by all accounts, very humble, lovely people. There are interviews. There's an interview by Arlene Francis on YouTube that you can see Charles and Ray speaking about the Eames
check
chair.
that out.
Yeah, the lounge chair. And so anywhere from films to toys to furniture to fabrics, they designed it all.
Well, one of the great experiences of my life was to go through Cranbrook. And, of course, Sorensen, who was the architect who designed the CBS building.
Yes.
And I just found it so fascinating to look at the original residence that he lived in.
Yes.
And just so many things that you can learn.
Oh, that was a dream also for me to go visit there. It's just an amazing place. And there's so much of the collaboration between the Eames and everybody. I mean, it's a long list of famous people.
Give me an example of one of your tours in LA. How long does it last?
Sure. I have a wonderful partner, Eric Evevold, who is an expert in neon lighting. And so he was one of my students at UCLA, and we just stayed in touch. And he did these neon bus tours for the Museum of Neon Art. And then also he was an ambassador for Bullock's Wilshire in Koreatown. And I had gone on a tour not knowing that he was going to be the tour guide, and he was so amazing. I actually started crying. I was so proud of my boy. And so we started doing these tours, walking tours. We take people through West Hollywood, and it's about an hour and a half tour. The Leland Bryant tour that we do in West Hollywood area on Fountain Avenue and Sunset Boulevard. We, in a couple of weeks, are going to Falling Water, Frank Lloyd Wright's Beauty in Pennsylvania, to take people there. We do a walking tour through Union Station downtown. Just about everything there is around Los Angeles and close by and far away we do.
And it's always walking.
Everything. So
So you do bus tours?
Yes, we do bus tours, walking tours. We oftentimes incorporate lunch in there and enjoy a lunch at some important historical place.
Interesting. Yeah. So if people would like to participate, you have a newsletter.
I do.
But also a website that they can contact you?
So just at eleanorschrader.com, or you can find me on the internet a lot. That came out wrong.
No, I think that's great because I find the social network as a wonderful thing.
Oh, yes.
But I think you have to be positive about what your expertise is.
Yes.
And I think that people are looking for that information, and especially design aficionados.
Yes, and it blew up during COVID. I had been invited to teach some classes for seniors. There's a program called OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and as we were all shut in, that I was doing Sunday night lectures for about an hour on a variety of topics, and then teaching these various classes for the senior programs, and I'm at about 10 different OLLIs now, and people were so anxious to get out and do something, and it just blew up. So I've probably got about 20,000 people on my email list now, and with great joy.
Well, you know, as you probably realize, the name of this podcast is Inspired. So what really inspires you? You've got a very fertile mind.
Thank you. I was going to say a very sick and twisted mind sometimes.
Not really.
I have a very quirky sense of humor. I'm inspired by people like you who bring all of the design world together. It is, as you've mentioned in many of your previous podcasts, that it is a small town and we all know each other. And it's a very fruitful town that we all encourage each other, and I know that's not true in many other design circles. So I'm inspired by, well, I want to say first of all, my students. They are the wellsprings of my excitement about all this. And just to see their faces when they have traveled someplace and then have come back to talk about it and say, Eleanor, you talked about this in class, or I'll get these emails and photos, and just to have opened up their worlds. That's a very special gift I've been given by the heavens above.
Well, that's so true. And when you mentioned design, and I have always wanted to promote design on many of the mediums that we work with. And I can remember pitching ABC Television Network back in the 70s to do a design show. And the only design show was Arlene Francis, the home show on NBC. And the gal who was in charge of daytime programming said, Joe, we're just boxed in with the soaps and with the quiz programs. Sounds like a great idea, but maybe down the road. So when HGTV approached me and we launched that network, I thought, finally, because we live in our homes, we watch sports in our homes, we watch the quiz games, we watch soaps in our homes. why not talk about design?
Exactly. It's everything that we live within.
That's right.
And during COVID, as we went online with our classes, I thought, how am I going to tell my students about how to make a living in this? Everybody was busy. All of my designer friends were busy because everybody was remodeling their homes, because then we looked around at what we were living in. It's like, well, we could do this, a little nip and tuck over here, a little change over here.
Right.
And everybody was busy. So,
Well, Rose Tarlow has been very instrumental in working with the students.
yes.
And I think that that's terrific because
Yes.
I have an admiration for that woman. I think she's multi-talented.
Yes. And so many people have come forward in the classes that I teach and are so happy and giving. Timothy Corrigan is one of our guests.
He's the greatest.
Oh, yes. Rocky.
What that man has done.
Amazing.
And of course, Rocky.
And Rocky.
Rocky's a legend
He is.
and
Rocky-
design icon.
I have to tell you the story of Rocky.
Please.
That Brett Parsons had introduced me to Rocky when we were doing our podcast that I was doing with Ann Asher many years ago. And Rocky just took to the students like a duck to water. He did everything at the PDC to open up doors for them. Amazing, absolutely amazing. And he introduced me to many people, which is, I think, is how I found you, is Gary Gibson. I was
yes?
looking at all of his friends, and I thought, well, I need a few more friends on my Facebook. And so,
Well, PDC, for our listeners, is the Pacific
Yes.
Design Center.
Yes.
And anybody that asks me about design, I always say, walk through
Yes.
the Pacific Design Center.
Yes.
Because there's so much to see.
and this is how you develop your eye, is
That's
going out
right.
and looking. And when I was in the design school, we were a little bit afraid of the PDC.
That's right.
And now it's been opened up. There's so many people who are welcoming with open
Mm-hmm.
arms to our UCLA students and other design students so that they can feel comfortable going in and learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's so important to learn with your eyes.
Yes, I tell them you cannot spec online. You need to sit in that couch. You need to feel the fabric. You might have a few things to buy online, but learn by going and traveling and going to museums and
Absolutely.
just opening your eyes.
Now, you are so interesting, and I wish that we could talk for hours, but what's ahead for Eleanor Schrader?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I love what I do. I just feel, to use a trite expression, very blessed that I happen to kind of fall into this. I don't know, Joe. Tell me what to do.
Well, no, I always find that God laughs when you say you have a plan because it's all been pre-planned for you. But I believe that it evolves.
It evolves.
And my father has always said to me, success is a journey.
It is.
Not a destination. And I believe that's so true because in his teaching me not to do this and not to do that, it just evolved that I finally wound up what he told me not to do. And I made a success of it. I don't know how.
It evolves.
It
And
does.
I think we're meant to be in the right place, that obviously doors open. And as I've learned from you, that to come to a field later in life and to embrace it and to enjoy everything that it has given us.
Well, I think you see the light, and I think you follow it.
Yes.
If you do. But I know people have resisted what they think is right for them and
Yeah.
what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And I think that if anything, you have encouraged people to follow their dream, follow their gleam, is what Tennyson used to say. And I think that's so true.
Thank you. I love that, and thank you for that compliment, too. Is maybe because I get so excited about what I see that maybe that infuses it in other people, because I feel like I've just started, and I know I've been doing this for many years, but I used to say that I feel like I know about 2% of what I'd like to know. I think I'm up to about 10% now.
I'm at 1.
So I don't know. Maybe that acting career is in the cards for me. I don't
Could
know.
be. But I've found too, and Sister Paris said this to me, travel is the best education for the eye. And I was lucky with HGTV to be able to travel the world with my daughter, who was my producer. And just to be able to keep your eyes open. Some people can go into a room and not see anything. And I think, I guess it was the CIA or the FBI, they gave tests and you were supposed to remember what you saw in that room.
Yeah.
And I think that it's your ability to drink it up.
Yes. And that's what Jody taught us, that you walk into a room and you immediately scan the room and find out what style it is, what everything about it. And so you pick it up very quickly, is what we were taught.
Well, we just have moved into a new home. And I like to think that our cherished pieces, it's sort of like finding them a new home.
Yes.
And I feel that they kind of gravitate to that place. And I don't know whether that's an acquired talent or what, but I think that when you design a room and you have furnishings for that room, those furnishings almost go where they want to go.
Yes. Yes.
Is that true?
Going back to Sister Parrish, I think she's the one who said, or maybe it was Dorothy Draper, if it looks right, it is right. So that is, they're meant to be there.
Well, Dorothy Draper and Sister Parrish, those are two very, very famous designers for those people who have not heard of them.
Yes.
Dorothy Draper did some spectacular hotels, and of
Yes.
course the Grand Hotel
Yes.
in Mackinac Island,
Yes.
which is an experience that I will
And the
never forget.
Greenbrier Hotel.
That's right.
Oh my gosh. And her protege, Carlton Varney.
That's right.
Who was just a wonderful man and one of the few people I allowed to mispronounce my name. Evidently from the East Coast, they say Eleanor, which drives me nuts, but it's Eleanor.
Right.
And Carlton, I would call once in a while and say, Carlton, thank you for doing this for the students. Eleanor, how good to hear from you. And just a wonderful
Maybe
man.
that was his New York accent.
I think so.
We had the pleasure of going through the cottage that he maintained and decorated for the owners of the Grand. And he loved color.
Yes.
And that's the thing that, I'm a monotone kind of guy, but I appreciate
Yes.
the use of color.
Yes, which he learned from Dorothy Draper.
Yes, I guess so.
She was he was the protege to Dorothy, and who he always called Mrs. Draper, and she brought color into a dreary world, as
That's right.
Carlton would say.
Well, some of the famous design legends have the ability, or had the ability, of mixing the common things with the very expensive things.
Yes.
And maybe it's trompe-l'oeil, fool the eye, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I can remember working very closely with Albert Hadley, and he became a very good friend when he moved to Connecticut. He used empty Gallo bottles as lamp bases,
Love it.
which I think made a perfect lamp base, but it was, common fare.
And that's exactly it, to have the eye to use high-end items with low-end items
That's
and make
right.
it all fit together. So it's not so precious.
Well, it's been a delight chatting with you. I am eager to see what your next step is. I'll have to read it in the trades.
Thank you, Joe. This was so much fun to talk with you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm
Thank
very
you.
honored.
Well, you're a busy lady, and I thank you for sharing your thoughts with my audience.
Thank you.